or weightlifting before?
About 5 years ago.
Yep.
Kind of not quite CrossFit, but was similar. So the gym that I in is sort of, it's a strength-based gym, but he gets really into the technique and things around lifting.
Yeah, nice.
Make sure that you're doing it properly. Yeah, first before you add the weight. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, cool. Love it.
You're a guardian,
Well done.
Tanya.
Sorry?
Are you a guardian?
Yeah.
So a little top tip. Your body may respond better if you can push right to the fringe of what's kind of comfortable, or a bit of a stretch, because the way your body works, it's basically built for load so well that if you put a lower load on it, your technique will actually potentially be less or lower.
I found that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're basically
actually put weight on. You think about everything a bit better.
That's right. You need that load to really prime in. Essentially, it's to get your muscles to really engage the brain and then the muscles. You need to feel that load in the early part of the movement, and then everything primes, and then you're actually safer in that optimal lifting window than you are perhaps going low and doing repetitions. It doesn't necessarily follow for a guardian like it would, say, for other health types.
Right. Okay. Yep. Cool.
Wicked. Good. So anyone else with any wins they'd like to share? And don't forget, guys, minor wins add up. So minor wins count as well. So if anyone's got anything that feels minor to them, I promise you it's less minor than you think.
Kath, anything going on for you?
A weekend's been filled with lots of walks. Probably more than I usually did. We did Sugarloaf last weekend.
Nice. I like that walk.
Yeah, Sunday, yeah. And what's the other one? The Harry Owl track. So we did that from Victoria Park right up to the top.
Good job. Well done.
Yeah. That's about it, really. Still doing yoga every morning and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Nice work. Good consistency. Well done. I like it. Who else we got on here? Laura? How have you been going? What's been going on for you?
Yeah, just sort of trying to continue with the consistency with my yoga and walking and jogging. So yeah, just working on that, the consistency piece. So
nice. And any obstacles around that have come up for you?
Yeah, just a bit of procrastination sometimes. So yeah. It's just reminding myself why it's worthwhile, taking that time to go for a walk or go for a jog. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, nice. The best of us do it.
Yeah, that all important why. Get it written on every wall in your house. Make a magnet for the fridge. Buy a t-shirt, a special mirror where it flashes up in the background. Keep that why present, because it's what drives you forward, and keep developing it too. If it doesn't feel like it's working, then it isn't the why you're looking for. Keep digging. Dig for the meaning. Dig for the those deep motivations, because when you get that right, and I'm saying this from experience, the game changes, and you can do whatever you want to do. Awesome. Well, thanks ever so much for coming, as ever, and we've missed you. We've missed you. It's been far too long. It's been a funny period in the world, and I know that you would have had your own experiences there. And we know they've probably had an element of stress attached. And we're always talking about stress, obviously, here. So what we thought would be really nice is to actually focus in on a stress-busting technique or a few stress-busting techniques, and to really pin down some ways of a counter hack for your biology, if you will. So life is always hacking us. It's always hacking us into stress. It's always trying to push us down that pyramid. Do you remember the old Maslow's pyramid? I'll be flashing that up later. So if you don't worry. It's going to try and push us down that pyramid because it wants us to get it pushes us into survival mode instead of that thriving mode. Now, the techniques that we're going to talk about today, and the kind of the intellectual idea that we're going to talk about today of mindfulness, can actually be a counter hack. It can actually turn that around and allow you to kind of fool your biology a little bit into thinking, actually, no, I am safer. in reality, you probably are safe. That's a mind game you can play with yourself. But it's about telling the biology using technique and action, physical action, that you are safe, safer than you thought, and bringing it back to its center. And if you're constantly in a cycle of stress, you can lose complete sight of your actual natural skill, your natural inbuilt ability to be mindful. So today we're going to discuss that. We're going to unpack it. We're going to get into a bit of a workshop. We're actually going to do some meditation and some breath work in the class. During that time, you can turn off your cameras, but I want to hear some deep and heavy breathing, or it'll be a really poor experience for me. So you can turn off your cameras if you're embarrassed, is my point. But please take part in these exercises. They will leave, if nothing else today, we will have you a little bit less stressed than when you perhaps came into the call. Sweet. So to get us started in that vein and to set the scene for the session, we're going to have Eva, Coach Eva, one of our PH360 experts, long-standing expert in personalised health, and a very good friend of mine. And she's going to take us through a meditation just to help everybody. Well, I'll say a meditation. I don't want to frame it too hard. All we're going to do is relax our minds and bodies and try and feel for where it's at. Just try and get a sense of where's my body at right now, and then pay attention to the breath and see where that's at, and see where it goes when you have that mindfulness state. So that's what we're going to do. Eva's going to lead us in that. If you want to turn your cameras off to really get into this and not feel self-conscious, then absolutely go for it. If you want to leave them on and every now and then look who's looking at you, you can do that too.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see your faces. So yeah, today I'm going to take you through a very short, simple, easy way to ground yourself and settle yourself into the present moment. Okay, so it's going to be nice and short, and I want you, just wherever you are right now, I'd like you to take the time to find yourself a comfortable position. Okay, so I would recommend sitting nice and tall on a chair. Check that your feet are connected to the ground as well, and with your hands resting on your lap. Just take a moment to find that comfortable space now. And if you do prefer to lie down or sit on the ground with some pillows or a blanket, if you have them available, please feel free to do that as well. Most important thing is that you're comfortable right now. So for the next 5 or so minutes, I'll be guiding you through a short meditation that will encourage you to become aware of your body and breath. So I invite you now to close your eyes. Just take a few slow breaths to relax your mind and body. Make these breaths slow, light, and steady, spending more time in the exhale. So just sit in this moment for a while and simply observe your breath. Surrender. Stay present and love yourself enough to move through this process today. Now bring your awareness to the sensations of where the body is in contact with whatever is supporting you. Spend a few moments exploring these sensations. Now gathering your attention away from the breath and moving it to focus on your feet. I want you to imagine that your roots moving through your feet are grounding you. Imagine those roots drawing warm water from the earth beneath you, filling up to your feet, ankles,
and feeling the warmth within those feet. Allow this water to move higher now, up past your calves and shins to right below your knees, and feel the weight of your legs from your feet to your thighs. Allow that water to move higher now. Become aware of the soothing water as it encircles your buttocks, your groin, and your inner thighs. And as the water rises all the way up to your waist, as it moves around your organs, cleansing and taking away any unwanted tension. As the water continues to climb further up your torso, sense the weight of your body now, immersed up to your rib cage under the warm liquid. And now allow the water to encircle your chest and shoulders as it spills in and down your arms all the way to your fingertips. From the neck down, feel the weight and density of your body. Take notice of any areas that are singing out to you right now. Now allow the soothing water to move up through your neck, slowly filling your head space. Feel the warmth embracing your mind, your body, and your soul. And now surrender into this warm, relaxing sensation. And for a few moments now, just feel your body in this space. I invite you now to slowly bring your awareness back into the space around you. Maybe you want to wriggle your fingers and your toes, listening to the sounds around you. And then when you are ready, slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. Hello, hello.
Wake up, everybody.
I hope you guys enjoyed that little 5 minutes of being present, looking inward, hopefully feeling nice and relaxed and ready to learn a little bit more.
Thanks, Eva. Lovely.
Thank you.
Really good job. Loved it. So, team, I'd really love to know, thanks, Kath. I'd really love to know how you felt in that from different types of people. I can see we've got an endomorph, an ectomorph, and a mesomorph who have got cameras on. So you've beautifully volunteered yourselves to perhaps say a little on how you feel. go through it, Kath. Oh, you're on mute there.
Keep losing my mouse. Was awesome. I do it every morning and every night, very similar, but I always say Mother Earth energy below and universal energy above, and I connect. Yeah.
Yes. Nice, love it. Yeah. I like to think of a big warm light coming in at the top.
Yeah, same. Yep.
Really nice. Yep. Yeah, good stuff.
Yep.
Is there anyone who was that anybody's first meditation, if you will, or experience of that kind of mindfulness exercise? Was there anyone who's never done one before? Love to hear from you guys if there is. How did you find that, Laura? I'm going to pick on you just because activators and meditation can be a tricky pairing. How did you find that?
Yeah, good. I mean, I have done a bit of meditation before, and it's always that balance of you're relaxing, clearing the mind, and not getting, letting the thoughts just sort of pass and not going down the rabbit hole of thinking of those. So that's always just a struggle for me. Always coming back to the to the meditation and relaxing.
Yes, totally, exactly right. That's exactly it. And again, like gratitude or any emotional state, there are neural connections that you can train and strengthen by taking part in these kind of exercises. The other thing I would say for you, Laura, is there'll be more tips later on as to what will help you get into this state. I won't give any spoilers away just yet, but every health type will have a natural entry or a portal or a window into a more mindful state. And by getting in that first, we can usually make more of this exercise or these exercises. So we'll talk about that later. Excellent. What about you, Tanya? Is that a first for you? Have you experienced that before? Did you enjoy it?
I don't do it on a regular basis, but have done it before. That was good, just to kind of get all the aches and pains of yesterday actually kind of gone.
Nice.
And kind of centre yourself again.
Sometimes if you can feel a compression or a tension in a area of the body, when you get to that with the meditation, it could still be classed as very present and embodied to think about that sensation and try and almost imagine it expanding, releasing, leaving the body. And you'd be surprised about what that's doing for you cellularly. I'm not going to go full Joe Dispenza on you today, but essentially there's a lot to be said for thinking about what's happening in a region of your body and connecting your psyche to your cells in that way and trying to alleviate any issues, pains, tensions, or whatever. So that's cool. Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate that. Cool. And obviously, Jared, when you wake up, just let us know. But yes, thanks everybody for taking part in that. And I hope you enjoyed it. We do intend on using a little meditation at the beginning of these sessions quite regularly, because we know you guys don't get these opportunities in your day often. And we want to say as a bare minimum that we can do that for you when we meet up monthly. So we'll add some variation. We'll try some different ones, but ultimately you're always going to get some free mindfulness when you turn up to these sessions from now on. Cool. Okay. Slight change of pace. Back into presentation mode. We're going to come slightly out of that relaxed state now, slightly, and into a slightly different relaxed state and talk through what mindfulness is all about and talk about some more techniques. Okay, so that's us. Oh, what's happened here? I've lost you. 2 seconds, team. I just need to keep you guys on screen. I don't know what I'm looking at. Let's do that again. Okay, cool. So you should now see, you should be able to see a presentation. Is that right? You seen that, guys? Wicked. Okay. So yes, Rise Wellness, that's us. You may have noticed that our communications have changed somewhat. We basically have consolidated our brand into one singular company, and we are now Rise Wellness, and that's who will be going forward. So when you get emails from any Rise Wellness address, make sure you favorite it and add it to your contacts. And if you could let your colleagues know as well, we will be communicating that over the coming weeks. But if you could help us out with that and just let them know that Rise Wellness is a safe address and that is who we are and where we'll be communicating from in the future. But yeah, we're here to help you with your health. So as you well know, so we want to talk to you today about mindfulness and explain it in relation to Maslow's hierarchy, because obviously that's a really cool part of what we're trying to do, is keep you guys somewhere healthier on that hierarchy, or even move you up it over time. Now, I know there's a lot of external factors in the world at the moment that make that more difficult. And I think that mindfulness, of all the things, maybe exercise would be up there with it, but mindfulness might be one of the most powerful ways that you can kind of balance out the onslaught of stressors that is out there in the world at the moment. So that's what we're going to talk about it today and give you some tools to work with in terms of mindfulness. Wicked. So it's safety first, growth second. So if we can't get our body to feel safe, we're not going to move up. We're not going to move up that pyramid. We're going to be stuck in those lower echelons, because our body feeling stressed is a signal that we aren't secure, that something's not right, the safety isn't right, either physiologically, and we don't even get to see connection and belonging necessarily if we're feeling that way, if we're feeling unsafe. So we know that because of all the pressures that are out there, and modern life generally is very good at making us feel unsafe. Basic things, like, for example, your neighbor moans because your bins fell over, and you get a bit of a whinge from the neighbor. That can make you feel quite stressed, maybe a little anxious. Very basic thing. You go out for a Saturday night meal and you have a few too many boozies, and next thing you know, your body's feeling a bit toxic the next day. Now, that toxicity is a stressor, right? And we have to watch that. And I'm not saying never enjoy a drink with friends, but make sure it is with friends, and make sure it's got some value other than just the drink itself, because it will make your body feel unsafe. Or maybe you're driving along in your car and you hear that scary noise. What is that scary noise? Is it the fan? Is it the fan belt? Is it a tire burst? You get that sinking feeling, oh no, money is going to go out the account. I'm going to need to get a car fix. You know, these kind of things. These basic things can signal to our biology, even though really, are we safe in those moments? Yeah, we're safe in those moments. Like, are we actually, what's the highest risk or the most dangerous thing that can come of any of those things? It's probably not that dangerous, really. We're probably quite safe, but we tend to get sucked into feeling unsafe. And as a result, we have an impact on our biology that then pours into our stress bucket, if you will. So it's really important that we have other activities that do the opposite, as we've talked about in the past. When we talk stress management, when we talk precision movement, those things, those ideas, activities that we've talked about are things that you can apply to counterbalance these stresses that occur in your life, in every day-to-day life. So mindfulness then, what makes mindfulness so special is it's a reality hack that brings us back to our center. It brings our biology, in terms of our nervous system, it can really bring it down to a less excited state. And by doing it regularly, we can keep ourselves on a more even keel. Yeah, I would say that you can't beat your biology. So we're not looking to beat it here. We're actually looking to work with it. We're looking to understand what makes it tick, understand why it feels threatened, and try and reduce those factors or manage them, but then equally understand what makes it feel good, makes it feel positive, and bring that kind of action into our life. Sweet. So what is the definition of mindfulness? Because mindfulness is a very broad term, and a lot of people can get a little bit confused as to what it really is all about. Now, for the purpose of our program and for today's session and for ongoing when we talk mindfulness, we kind of want to establish two major pillars of what we consider mindfulness to be, or rather what we think matters when it comes to mindfulness. But here's a Google definition: the quality of state of being or conscious or aware of something. A mental state achieved by focusing on one's own awareness, the present moment, with clarity, acknowledgement, and accepting those feelings, thoughts, and body sensations as a therapeutic technique. So they're the definitions. They're pretty good, actually. They pretty much cover how we want you to think about it. Let's dial in a little further. So what we want to do is we want to think of mindfulness as a two-dimensional thing. It's actually, I would say, four-dimensional. But in terms of our self-mastery and self-management, there are two things we need to really pay attention to make sure that all dimensions of mindfulness are accessible, trained, and in growth. Now, the practice, the physical act of being mindful, and obviously that is unique to you as an individual as to what will make you feel mindful. And that is related to your health type, as we know, and it's related to your dominant neurotransmitter. We'll talk about that in more detail later. But ultimately, the practice may be multi-tiered or multi-layered. It may not be as simple as I'm going to sit and be mindful. For some bodies, in some states or at some times of excitation in our lives, you can't simply summon mindfulness. You might need to physically move or engage in an activity that brings you back to your center before you actually go into a breathing technique or try and be meditative or in a meditative state. Not everybody can just do that, and everybody is different depending on what level of stress and awareness they're in. So today we're going to teach you a few practices that will help you get into mindfulness, and we'll look at the definition. And we'll also try and help you realize that this is also a technique for a self-check. If I can't be mindful, what does that tell me about my biology at the moment? If I'm finding it's harder to be mindful post-coffee at a given time of the day, what does that tell me about my relationship with coffee? If I'm finding it mindful post-alcohol, what does that tell me about my relationship with alcohol? Because I know Shay's been telling you that. So it's just a way of checking the wellometer or the wellness-ometer, if you will, and saying, okay, where am I at right now in my biology? So it can be a really useful tool in that way too. So our aspiration is to talk about internal regulation, learning what order of play is relevant to your biology to get into a mindful state, and then we can work on being responsive as opposed to reactive to life scenarios and moments of sympathetic nervous system activation, if you will, i.e. stress, anger, anxiety, really interpreting what they're telling you and being in your executive state rather than becoming the personality of the state. Becoming the personality of the state. And I'll talk about that more in a minute. So we don't want you to abandon emotions. We don't want you to think they're all bad or that we need to fight them, repress them. We're not trying to turn you into Spock or a Falcon at this point. We're actually trying to teach you to interpret them, to apply a conscious, rational process to understand what they mean so that you can act upon those feelings and work towards managing them better for yourself in the future. Cool. So to do that with great effect, we need to know what's going on with the individual, because we do with everything, right? As you know, as we are forever telling you, everything is personalized. So this slide will just quickly illuminate what it will take or what you could be doing in your given health type to help you find mindfulness. So an activator, for example, can be quite a dynamic thinker and can have quite an active mind, especially in the morning. So sometimes asking an activator to sit still, focus on breath, and be still, mentally or physically, is not necessarily a good idea, because it could be an imposition on their freedom, and that's barely arguably, actually, their highest value. So they need to feel free. So telling an activator, sit still, breathe, no matter how you word it, it can feel constrictive. So what can really help is give them movement and challenge first. Let them feel and work through movement or challenge and actually come out the other side. And you might find that their system will then be ready to recover. And in that state of a desire for recovery, you'll be able to get yourselves or your partner or your colleagues into a more meditative or mindful state of being. All making sense so far, team? Cool. So for the connector then, if they can spend time in the present moment, and that can be done through tight trust building and connection or some novel activity and fun. Usually there can be a physical element to that. They do have a strong relationship with movement as well, like the activator. And music could be another thing. Music can bring a lot of us actually, but connectors particularly, it can bring them to a really good sense of presence. And after experiencing that, they may find it easier to be mindful. Don't be a totalitarian to yourself. Don't try and think, I must be mindful. Meditation is healthy. I must learn to do this. I guarantee you that will make it that will create some neural linguistic programs, or it will fire them up that make you feel like you're failing, or oh, I'm not doing a good enough job of meditation. If anything we ask you to do makes you feel that way, then we've asked you the wrong way. Think about it, how to apply it to your life for you, because ultimately, if anything is raising your sense of I'm not doing this right, then we haven't explained it to you correctly. All right, so just bear that in mind. Nothing is about going, oh, I'm not doing it right. Cool. A guardian, when a guardian is nurtured and it knows the family is safe, it will often find it easier to get into a state of relaxation. The other thing with guardians, I would say, is that movement will help with that too, because of the endorphin impact. They're quite sensitive to endorphins in a good way. They love endorphins and they get a lot out of them. They're really important. So endorphins can help with them too. Same can be said for diplos, but also planning, feeling secure, feeling things are not chaotic, feeling things are relaxed and under control will let them get into joy, which will let them get into a meditation easier. Good. The sensor is special and a little different in the sense in that they're probably arguably one of the most adapted bodies for mind over matter, literally. They can take control of their physiology. The body slaves to the mind. So they can be very good at meditation in its most conventional and most well understood sense. But for a sensor, if they're struggling, then reduce the input. And that can include light, sound, chaos of any description, uncontrollable factors. They need to feel a sense of certainty and kind of low stimulation because they're seeking kind of darkness and quietness. Melancholic is another name for the sensor, and melancholic actually translates to dark bile. And if you understand, if you've heard of melatonin, melatonin allows us to get into our dark, to get to sleep. And the sensor is very sensitive to these things. So to get them into meditation, provide them with some darkness and absence, if you will. Productivity and achievement. Crusaders, obviously crusaders, they need, if by feeling they've ticked some personal wins and boxes in the growth or achievement sense, they will feel more whole and more able, more available to be in the meditative state. If they feel like there's a shed load to do and they feel like they haven't got that under control, they may find it harder and their mind may race. But again, they have a powerful mind, so they can often take control of that. And if they're practicing meditation, they can be quite strong with it as well. It's quite natural. It's in their genius in the conventional sense. Awesome. So that's our health types. So just to reiterate, final point, if we can tap into these states or these modalities of being, we may just get our people, our health types, ourselves into an entry point on the threshold of mindfulness. Awesome. Does that all make sense, team? Oh, couple of bits in the chat. Let's check in on this. Cool. Oh, Jared had to go. Thanks, Jared. Yeah. Good. So is there anyone got any questions on anything to do with health types and mindfulness and what we've covered so far? Any questions? Any realizations? Anything you'd like to ask at all before we move on? No? Good. So in a moment, we will be coming to some activities. We're going to actually workshop out a few breathing techniques that could aid our capacity, given enough consistency, could aid our capacity to get into mindfulness. Obviously, breathing is well documented as a pretty special thing to do in your life for health, well-being, and almost supernatural control. I don't know if anyone's heard of Wim Hof. Who's heard of Wim Hof? If you give me a hands up. Most people have heard of him. Yeah, Ross has heard of him. Look, he looks like him. No, Kath and Tanya, not heard of Wim Hof? So Wim Hof has mastered breathing in a way that is almost superhuman. It clearly isn't superhuman because he's a human. Can you be a superhuman? Is that a thing? Or has he just realized the potential that is sat within all of us? Now, what Wim Hof can do, there's a couple of things, is he can walk through the Antarctic or up a mountain, namely a mountain in the Himalayas, you know the one, and he can maintain his internal body temperature and regulate it through thought and breathing alone. I'm just going to let that sit there. So if that hasn't landed, he walked to the top of the Himalayas with nothing but a pair of shorts on. Or at least it was to base camp, I should say. And that is a fact. Now, what was really interesting, because he was doing this sort of stuff for years, got a bit of attention, is he then did an experiment in Eindhoven. And you can check this out. This is research. This is corroborated. This is phenomenal. And he got 12 of his closest protégés and most well-trained protégés. And they were voluntarily exposed to E. coli. And E. coli was allowed to take hold of their physiology, i.e. it was allowed to get into their cells and try and wreak havoc on their immune system. Now, E. coli, if you don't know, has a large inflammatory effect. One of its major mechanisms for growth and distribution throughout the body is inflammation. Wim Hof's, let's say, acolytes, because they are at this point, managed to breathe this inflammation out of their bodies and defeat E. coli in its tracks. I can't remember the exact statistics on how big that is, but basically almost every human ever who's been exposed to E. coli has never been able to thwart it manually at the 2-day point. But Wim Hof and his disciples can and did. And this is all recorded. It's phenomenal. So breathing, my point is this, breathing is extremely powerful when it comes to well-being. But bringing it back to mindfulness specifically, it's one of our quickest, easiest, and most, I'd argue, enjoyable routes to a more mindful state. So with that taken into consideration, we're going to go into a few breathing techniques. Now, Eva is going to be back on the comm, and she's going to take us through the Mesomorph's best breathing technique, arguably. So yeah, we're going to, in the next 3 exercises, we're going to cover a breathing technique that can be applied to a given morphology. That is to say, endos, diplomats and guardians will have a certain technique. Ectos, crusaders and censors will have a different technique. And our mesos that Eva will now cover will have a specific technique. And these techniques work for them better for very, very precise reasons. And we'll cover that as well. So let's move on. Slide. Technique 1, diaphragmatic breathing. So the activator has a tendency, and Eva, give me a nod when you're ready, but the activator and the connector, we can have a tendency to get into a state of breath that is shallow for a couple of reasons. One is because we eat quite regularly, and 2 is because we sit naturally in this excited state because of our sensitivity to adrenaline. So because adrenaline should be more present, and ultimately is, there can be a tendency, like me now, when I'm presenting, I rarely get in enough oxygen. And usually about this point, I'm feeling it actually, I start to feel a little bit dizzy. And that's honestly the truth. And this is because my breathing gets shallow. My diaphragmatic control disintegrates. And this is all related to adrenaline. So what diaphragmatic breathing can do for me, breath of fire or Kundalini breathing, as otherwise it's known, can just get my diaphragm control back into an autonomous state. So my body will take over. Good. And that will up my oxygen. So Eva, when you're ready, take us through a bit of diaphragmatic breathing.
Cool. Alrighty, team. So yes, we have diaphragmatic breathing. If you have the space to lie down, I encourage you to do so. It's going to make it a lot easier. Oh, what happened to the screen, Chris?
Oh, sorry, mate. That was me. I will give it back to you in 2 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you have the ability to lie down, yeah, I encourage you to do that. It's going to make this process a lot easier for you. But if you don't, just get comfy in your seat, and I want you to place one hand in the middle of your upper chest and place the other hand on the stomach. just beneath the sternum there. So what we call the diaphragm area. The diaphragm is part of our core as well. So what I want you to do is take a nice inhale, slowly breathing through the nose, drawing the breath down towards the stomach, the diaphragm, so the top of the stomach area there, or the bottom of the rib cage. Good. And when you exhale, you should push upward towards the hand, and then let the air come out nice and slow through the mouth. So we're going to inhale slowly through the nose, drawing the breath down towards the stomach. The stomach should push upward against your hand while the chest remains still. Then to exhale, tighten the abdominal muscles and let the stomach fall downward while exhaling through pursed lips. And again, the chest should remain still. So the aim here is to really isolate our diaphragm and get a nice deep belly breathing. It's called fire breath. Cool. How did everybody go with that one?
Nice, easy technique, that, team, isn't it? Nice and easy technique. If you do notice that you're breathing in shallow, whether you be meso, endo, or ecto, I do want to reiterate that all of these techniques can be applied to anybody, of course. But applying generally the one that's best suited to your health type, but your morphology, is probably the better strategy and more optimal. But yeah, if you're finding you're breathing in shallow because you've overeaten or got overexcited, getting back into good diaphragmatic breath is really valuable. Think about the oxygenation over every cell. Think about 24,000 breaths a day, 24,000 breaths a day, roughly speaking. That's a lot, right? And if we don't optimize the rhythm of that, we're actually we're robbing our body of one of its most natural regulatory mechanisms. The breath massages organs, it brings oxygen into the body. It really sets our biology in its grounding. And if we allow it to get short at 7 a.m. because of a row with the hubby, or because of that near accident on the motorway, and we don't recover it using a technique like this, that stuff will add up over time. So when you get into those moments and you have those experiences, whatever they might be, then I love that. Cass taking pictures. I love it. Then please think, oh, that beardy chap and his breathing stuff. We'd better do that. And Eva, let's do what Eva said, because it's really, really good for recentering. Good. Everyone happy with diaphragmatic breathing? Good for, interestingly as well, it really gets us to care for and build, going back to that massaging effect, really building control and creating a mental or a nerve relationship and control over our root chakra. So one of the reasons as well it's quite interesting with mesomorphs is mesomorphs can very easily have relatively low self-esteem. And as a result, their root chakra relationship can be compromised. And this breathing technique will actually actively help balance that out. That and a few ab exercises now and then, among a million other things. But seriously, creating control of that area of the body can create control of the whole body and mind for a mesomorph. Powerful stuff. I do not joke. I'm deadly serious at this point. Good. Next up, technique 2. Oh, this one's good. I like this one. This seems to help me a little bit. Alternate nostril breathing. Alternate nostril breathing. And the man of the moment, the man with many faces today, Nathan McGregor, is going to take us through some alternate nostril breathing.
Cheers, mate. Yes, been popping up quite frequently on that video list. Rightio. So alternate nostril breathing. This is actually one of my favorite ways to breathe, particularly when meditating. Definitely helps me feel very relaxed and calm. So we'll just follow along. Kath, I'll be interested to hear how this one goes for you, because this is a very ecto-focused breathing technique. So what we're going to do is essentially we're going to breathe in and out through one nostril and then just swap it over, breathe out in and out through the other one. So what I want you to do is you can use one hand, you can use two hands, but I'm going to use two. So we're going to block, or have the hands ready to block each nostril. So we're going to start with blocking your right nostril. And what I want you to do is a big, deep breath in through the left. And then breathe out through the left. Make sure you exhale all the way out. Then we'll release the right, cover the left, breathe in. All the way in. And then nice slow breath out. Good. We'll swap back again. Cover the right. Breathe in through the left. All the way in and then breathe out again. Now we want to make sure that our breath is just nice and smooth, nice and rhythmic, and that it's continuous as well. We're not rushing it. If you breathe out, just swap back again, go to the right. One of the things that I love to do with this breathing one or breathing style is, as I breathe in, I imagine the ocean, so like an ocean wave washing over my body. And then as I breathe out, that ocean wave just dissolves and washes any negative energy or emotion away, and just essentially cleans and calms my body. And if you've done the right one again, you can swap back to the left. Breathe in. And then slowly breathe back out. Nice work, team. Nice, simple one again. Benefits, it just really helps regulate the nervous system. And like I said, if you're being conscious with it, if you're thinking about the breathing, think about the flow of the air going in through the nostril and how it feels, can be immensely calming and just really bring you back down to earth, really ground you, and just leaving you feel nice and refreshed and in the present moment.
Great job, mate. Thank you. Brilliant. That's a good one as well, team. Did anyone feel, I don't know about you, but I instantly felt, and it might be because I was a bit excited from all this presentation and seeing you guys, but it really leveled my head back out. I can feel the oxygen almost, which is really interesting. I'm convinced that when you're in a state where dopamine is around, you might respond better to a more ecto technique. And when you're in a state that's prolactin driven, i.e. you're connecting with family in a very nurturing way, you might find you respond more to the endo technique if you're feeling like you need a meditation. And with the meso technique, post-movement, diaphragmatic breathing could be really powerful as a part of your recovery and your cool down. Just something to consider. Because remember, at the back end of all this, it's all about not just surviving, it's about performance. So for those of you who are really well, you might be able to get a little bit more out of yourselves and actually turn on some really positive DNA by including these things, among other things, in your daily routines. Cool. Great job. Love it, Nate. Thank you, mate. Okay, next up then, we've got the endomorph technique. So our diplos and our guardians. Let's have a look at this one. Maybe. There we go. Now, I'm going to do the unspeakable thing, but I'm going to do this very gently. Ross or Bex, I know Bex, you have to be a bit careful, but Ross, how familiar are you with this, mate? And if you are, would you like to take the team through an extended exhale? And if you don't want to, mate, I will take it myself. No problem at all. I don't want to spring anything on you.
I actually use the double inhalation technique for myself, so I'm not very familiar with this one. So I'd love any other endo that's had experience with this to take me through it. Teach me.
Well, I'll tell you, Ross, if you're really comfortable with your technique, happy for you to run through that one, mate, if you prefer.
Okay, it's one that I picked up from a different chat, and I experimented and found some great benefit. So it was inhaling through the nose as far as possible, as far as you possibly think you can, and then trying to top up a little bit more, then a really deep exhale. So I guess there probably was the exhalation part to this that did work for me. So I'll give you a demonstration of how I do it, and then try it yourself. So I breathe in, and then and it's getting as much air as I possibly can to fill my lungs with that extra top up. So as much as I think I can, and then topping up more, and then a really, really, really long, extended. So it almost feels like my lungs are collapsing in on themselves with the exhalation. So do I do the hold with this one? So there probably is a hold subconsciously. I don't count it out. I don't know if there should be any particular hold pattern to this, but there is definitely a pause between as much as I possibly can, and then the top up, and then there's a pause again, then a very slow controlled exhalation until my lungs are just completely out of any kind of oxygen, if that helps.
Nice. That's really cool. Thanks, Ross, mate. Now, it's really interesting. Ross's technique does the same, would have the same impact as the extended exhale. And all of these techniques hint at this, but this one I think kind of makes it really plain, if you know where to look, at the absolute consistency of the paradigm of a type of person that is built into their fundamental essence, whether it be biologically, mentally, or physically. Now, let me explain what I mean with all those kind of over the top long words. What I'm basically saying, right, is the way a body and a mind works is consistent in everything they do. Now, let me just unpack that a little further to really illuminate what I'm trying to say. The extended exhale for a Diplo or a Guardian relates to the fact that they tend to hold on. They tend to hold on, whether it be to people, to things, to mass, conservation, and keeping the energy available. Play it safe, just hold a bit back for later. That tends to be in their natural paradigm, in their it's written deep into their DNA, into their essence, right? So when they're breathing, getting them to really expel the air means that they're not holding on anymore. Now, it's quite interesting too, because what that also does, and it's really powerful for them, is it changes the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in their bloodstream if they do it long enough. And it makes them get into a state of alkalinity and acidity, to make it easy, at a pH level that is more appropriate for their body. How powerful is that? That we're actually shifting the relationship between acid and alkaline in this alkaline body. Because if you don't know yet, endomorphs are more alkaline, and our activators as an opposition are the most acidic. So that's just a little refresh or a little new nugget for people. But so this breathing technique actually changes this pH level in their body, in the bloodstream, through oxygen and carbon dioxide ratios. And that is, again, another promotion of health that's more intertwined with who they are than simply do some extended breathing and that's right for you. This is why, if that makes sense. So there's no shortage of motivation when it comes to what we're recommending to you today, guys. Every single one of these techniques is equally as integrated and intertwined with who you are. Does that make sense? I just got to be excited about that. I think that's really, really cool. That's what I love about personalised health and health types, is that everything we're asking you to do is a reflection on who you are, or is a mirror of it, if you will, but a reflection, yeah. Cool. Well, let's have one last go at this extended exhale, all right? So just try it now. Everyone breathe out now. How much breath could you get out, team? Who got out about this much? Anyone? Anyone? Hands up. Ross? Do you know how much breath I could get out, Ross? And all the endos? Nothing left. My body is always out. The energy is out. The extroversion is out. The breath is out. So I need to pull in. So notice how much power and energy and strength I had on the intake compared to what I've got left on the outtake. There's virtually nothing there. And it's reflected, that's a reflection of my biology and my constitution, if you will, right? So for our endos, let's go again. Everybody breathe out. Get out as much as you can. Now breathe in. Now breathe out. Everyone stay in that rhythm. Keep going for me. What I want you to do is slowly, good job, Kath, don't faint on me, is slowly work on bringing the breath in quick and then exhaling it under control. So that's quite extreme. Good, nice. I feel a bit dizzy. So for me, it's probably not the best technique in the world, right? Because my body's naturally acidic and raising CO2 isn't as necessary in my body. It's kind of, that's controlled a bit more naturally, a bit more effortlessly. But for a Diplo or a Guardian, this will have a really positive impact on the balance in your body on a very chemical level. Good. Who enjoyed those breathing techniques? Yeah, nice, thank you. Who's going to use one in the next month? Because we're not going to see you now for a month. Who is committed to using them? How many times could we use them in the next month, team? I know some of you have got these practices, but if I could hear from a few of you on who's committed to using these in the next month, please just jump in.
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Who was that? I lost who that was. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Thanks, Tanya. You'll give it a go. So for you, Tanya, this is not something you're doing regularly, right? Historically. So what would be a comfortable commitment for you in the next immediate period?
I'll try to do it try to do it every day, but maybe every second day if I forget. Yeah, just try to do it when I can I remember to do it.
Cool.
I guess this is quite good because in the gym they tell you to breathe and brace. This one here would be kind of good to kind of get that whole bracing before you do the lifting sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I didn't realize that I actually did hold on to some of my breath. So
yeah, that's right. Now you know that biologically that's a bit more likely. You can be mindful. Knowledge is so powerful for this mindfulness piece, because this knowledge is the beginning of awareness, and awareness and mindfulness, they're almost inseparable. So when you take this awareness into your weightlifting, first just be curious, like, what is my breath doing? And the relationship between effective technique and maximal lifting and breathing, I can't tell you how important it is, Tanya. Like, I had a really good crack at learning to Olympic lift at one point, and I was trying to do, I can't think of it, clean and snatch, I think it was. Clean and snatch, so you end up in a pretty precarious position, and technique is so important or you injure yourself. And basically, I was struggling with it one day, and why is it not quite going right? I felt loose enough, I felt strong enough. And then I focused in on my breathing, what it was doing, and it was awful. It was all over the place. I was holding my breath, and then at the end, dropping the weight and going, what's wrong with me? And then I just tried to breathe at the right points, and with a little help from somebody who was a bit better at it than me, keep an eye on my breath, let me know if I'm doing it right. And sure enough, first time, perfect. So breathing is really powerful in weightlifting, for sure. So that's really cool. Cool. So let's take us back a little step. The wish is to do it. You said every other day. Do you think you can nail that every other day?
Yeah, also I put a reminder on my phone.
Yeah, nice. Perfect. Problem solving as well. Look at that. And what's the outcome you would look for, Tanya, that you would hope for, perhaps engaging in breathing
I guess
3 times a week?
reducing stress, I guess. Yeah, kind of get yourself grounded again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. Look at that. Easy, simple, nice emotional thing. Reduce my stress, feel good. I mean, who wouldn't want more of that? So that's our outcome. What would stop you doing it every other day, honestly?
Oh, just life. Get in the way.
Just like
Yeah,
so
busyness.
you've already identified a strategy to overcome that. Set an alarm, you know, and have that earmarked. I always encourage redundancy in any plan A, plan B, plan C. So maybe set 2 alarms.
Right,
then, you know, and in worst case scenario, if you ignore one, you might not ignore number 2.
Sure, yeah.
Cool. So really, we've got a nice little plan there, really straightforward. And that's what we call a whoop. And some of you have probably experienced that, if not all of you. But a whoop is really good. So what we're going to do very quickly, and if any of you have got goals in mind already, and you've kind of whooped yourself as I've gone through with Tanya, is I want you just to envisage that feeling, Tanya, very particularly, but everybody come along with us if you can. Envisage the outcome against the obstacle.
The vet's calling, so I'll be back in a minute. Got the rabbit.
Look at that. Look at that for time. No worries. So everybody else, if you can envisage even either Tanya's or your own outcome. So that feeling that she mentioned about feeling de-stressed, really pull it forward. What does it feel like to be de-stressed? Where are you? What are you paying attention to when your stress is low? Where are you 4-dimensionally? Am I now? Am I future? Am I past? Where am I when I am de-stressed compared to when I'm not? And imagine being in that headspace, that physical space, and then think of the obstacle, the daily rush, the daily grind, the kids, the job, the hubby, where's my dinner? You know, bog off, you know, where's all those thoughts that we have. And imagine yourself saying that maybe and saying, no, this is for me right now. This is for me right now. And just saying, I'm going to take a moment. I love to include the kids and things like this. I don't have any of my own yet because I'm a very sensible sort of guy. But for my friends who do, I love it. I love to see, and some of my PH friends are very good at this, I love to see them include them in their exercise, in their meditations, in their learning. It's phenomenal, so powerful. And kids are great because then they hold you accountable because they don't forget. So anyone who's got the kids pulling on them, use them to your advantage because they're really good little bossy bosses every now and then. And we all need one of those in our lives. We all need a Jiminy Cricket now and then. Good. So there are breathing techniques. Thank you for your participation. It was really good. And I really appreciate that because it makes it feel like the session is more valuable when people are really getting mucking in. And now we're going to do a bit more on mindfulness as a state or a mindset. We're just going to unpack that a little bit further. I'm going to talk about a few ideas that can help us really understand what mindfulness is and what it feels like when you develop a strong ability to stay in a mindful state. And I know now we've lost a few people, but that's cool. But this, obviously, for those of you who are watching in retrospect, I'm really, really talking to you guys now. And I really hope that you've worked through the diaphragm breathing, you've worked through the alternate nostril breathing, you've identified the technique that's most applicable to your health type. Perhaps that would be the extended exhale if you're an endomorph. And I'm talking to you at home as well now. And I just want you guys to think about, and I'm going to ask the audience here, and I'll let the coaches get involved with this because everyone has got ideas on mindfulness and we can all refine our ideas on it. What is mindfulness in terms of the state to you? What does it mean to you? Anyone? Somebody, anybody?
Being present, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Not worrying about yesterday or tomorrow, just today.
For
or
sure.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah. Presence is a great word.
Yeah.
Good. And anybody else?
Yeah, very much agree with Kath. Just presence in the moment. focused on what's here, what right here, right now, rather than future or past.
Yeah, yeah. And as we've talked about in the past with the health types, we have a proclivity to be in any one of the areas of time that we're naturally most adapted for, actually, is the way to look at it. The diplomat and the guardian, particularly the diplomat though, will spend more time thinking about the past and weighting the present against the past, if you will. Yeah. And the meso is kind of lucky in that generally they'll try and tend to the present, so they get the advantage of that when it comes to mindfulness. But that it's not a given, and they still need to work at it, and they need to perhaps be more aware of their presence, because that's not so easy for them. And then our crusaders, our ectos and our senses will be generally weighted towards the future and strategizing, planning what they need to be doing next. So presence isn't as easy for them in that sense. So yeah, it's really good. It's good that you both have identified that for our ectos and made that really clear. So anyone else got any contributions on mindfulness?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I feel it very much as a state of being consciously aware of where I am in time and space, and my thought processes and patterns, so that my brain doesn't kind of run away with itself.
Yes.
Which I find can happen when you get into that rumination as a diplomat, overthinking, and then you get stuck in that analysis paralysis kind of thing. So bringing that time just to recenter and reset brings clarity back to my mind. And then that allows me to move forward.
Yeah, good. Gets you out of freeze.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So when we're in a bad state, we're going to talk about states in a moment, but when we're in a bad state, our ectos run to the future. Our endos stay stuck, but not in the moment. They're stuck because they're often trying to hold on to something that's happened in the immediate or the distant past. And our mesos will just want to fight everybody if they're in a really bad state, or maybe or get really emotional. Emotional is another, it's kind of a dimension of fight for mesos. So this is who we are. This is what we do. This is our kind of survival strength, really. They can sound like weaknesses, but actually they're strengths with regard to staying alive, which is quite useful. I don't know if you're aware. But what I want you to think about next, and what I'm going to talk about next, is what are these states that we get in? Like, identify some of the states that make us feel like we can't be mindful anymore. We don't have that capacity. And where they take us when we're there. And I'll get onto it in a bit more. I'll be a bit more clear on it in a minute. And then I'm going to give you a kind of way of looking at states of being that can help you manage and get into this really strong executive state. So can someone and everyone on the chat or on the unmute to tell me, what's a state that you get into that changes your capacity to be mindful and makes you perhaps more excited or more anxious, or what states that occur naturally in life can do that to us? Any contributions, please?
I tend to get excited about the future quite a bit.
Is that good excitement though, Kath?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Don't stop that. That's a good
No.
What about do you ever stress about the future, Kath? Or if you're going to stress, is it about
sometimes, but not very often. No. Because I do a lot of like, what do you call it, when you plan your future, and a lot of things that I've envisioned for my future have come true to things that I've done. And yeah.
Good. That's awesome. That's really good. And we do find that crusaders tend to be able to get themselves into high states of discipline with what makes them well. Things have gone really wrong usually in their youth if they haven't mastered it. But are there, and this obviously goes out to everybody, but are there any states that you are aware of where you don't feel great, maybe low energy, maybe tired, maybe when you feel that capacity for self-control and that capacity for production or creating positive?
Too many rainy, cold days.
Too many rainy, cold days, right? Right.
There was no sun. Yeah.
No sun, right?
Mm.
And how do you feel when you get too many of those, Kath?
Oh, just a bit down in the dump sometimes. Yeah.
Does it affect your thoughts at all?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, but I try not to let it get that far.
Cool. Me, there's an example, the weather.
Yeah.
Can we control it? I mean, let's not go down the cloud seeding route. That's not what we're talking about, Anthony. But can we control me? Can I control the weather? And nobody needs sun much more than a connectory type of meta. We're mad for it. But no, I definitely can't, right? But I can control how I feel when the weather is not ideal, right? So we'll get to that in a minute. What about you, Tanya? Any states that you're aware of, or any events or phenomena, scenarios that occur in your life that get you into a state where you find mindfulness kind of dissipates, or there's a trend towards less awareness? Have you ever noticed that in yourself at all?
Yeah, I guess when I guess in the job, when people are I don't know how you put it, kind of like not that nice or
Negative.
you're trying your best, and it's just kind of you feel like keep trying and trying, but it's not what they want, or it's not good enough or whatever. So I guess that kind of thing kind of gets to me a bit.
Yeah, good. Thanks for sharing that, Tanya. I really appreciate it. And totally. I mean, it's that simple.
And it plays on your mind a bit,
Yeah.
And it's just trying to, put it into perspective. Is actually, are you right, or and
yeah. And the other thing as well is where are they at, Tanya? Like, where's their mindfulness level? How aware are they? And holding. Always have a view of the big picture. Like the big picture. Like at the moment, there's no one in the world, or certainly in New Zealand, who hasn't got some level of investment in what's happening externally over factors they can't control, like Omicron, like the changes in vaccine passes, and even positive changes can be stressful. Because it's like, legislation change again, and you guys are massively under the influence of these kind of factors, right, in what you do. And at the far end of that, it's a client who suffers as well as you, like, so yeah, Tanya, like, hold in your head, like, what is that person who's making me feel crap? Try and have compassion for where they're at. And I know that isn't easy, and it isn't your responsibility to do that. It's your responsibility to yourself to do that. Let me sort of clarify, because if you hold anything other than that, whether it be sadness, anger, frustration, even a bit of hate now and then, if you're that way inclined, I don't think you probably are, but then all you're really doing is getting at you. You're making it worse. You're suffering rather than pain. Is one thing. Pain is in the face. Suffering is, I got hit in the face. It felt like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like the mindfulness piece is when you get that kind of interaction, is going, oh, I didn't enjoy that very much. That hurt, or that felt horrible. Does it matter really? What are they going through? Do I deserve that kind of treatment? Do I deserve it? Because if I sit in it and I don't deserve it, then I'm being as hard on myself and nasty to myself as the person who did it in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for that share, Tanya. I really appreciate it. And so mindfulness is not given. We have to work at it. And here's the top tip, right? States like you've described, sadness, tiredness, in Kath's example of the weather's shit and I feel rubbish as a result, like those states are personalities in their own right. Think of them as personalities, right? So when you are overcome by the personality, or even a demon, if you will, possessed by the demon, that is hunger, that is anger, that is sadness, that is moroseness, which is a little bit darker than sadness again, that is like any kind of lack or bad state. That is a personality. Now, what do I mean by that? Is that personality has a whole set of traits of its own, and they're going to try and enact themselves until the personality gets what it needs, if that makes sense. Some joy, some food, some love, some connection. So those personality states, they're not you. They're states of being that have a purpose. Your body, your mind is a community. It is not a single entity, but there is one ring to bind them all, one guy in charge, one woman in charge, and that's the executive, right? That's the thing that's observing the hunger, that's observing the anger, that's thinking about compassion instead of thinking about reactivity or revenge, if you will. So that part of your mind, if it sees the state, oh, sadness, I've got the sadness personality coming on. Now, if you think of it as a community, yourself can integrate with the community. And what do you do in a community? There's no point in being a totalitarian saying, stop sad, don't do that, get happy now, because the community doesn't work that way. You got to work with it. You got to say, okay, what are your needs in the moment? Like if I get hungry, I eat. It's genius. Works every time. Feel better after. You know, if I get sad, go and get happy. Put happiness in. Don't sit in it. Don't dwell in it. Whatever it is that makes you happy, go and find it. If the sun isn't shining, then make a plan for when it is. Especially if you're a crusader. Plan for the next sunshine or for the next day that lets you get daylight. And then realize that actually it's not sunshine that you really want. It's just daylight. It's just being outside. That's humans. We completely underestimate the importance of light. Go and look up mitochondrial DNA health and light. It's a whole new world. But the point is this, right? Is identifying the personalities that you slip into throughout your days, weeks, lives, that get your body to be ununified, if you will, not yourself. If you can identify what they are and then you can observe them, you will develop rock solid, exceptional mindfulness. Does that make sense? Good.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, I can't take any ownership of that idea. I thought it was a genius thing that I learned from Jordan Peterson. So I thought I'd share it with you today. So think of the personalities that you get into and learn to integrate them into your life and respect them for who they are, but know that they're not you and know that not everything they say is right, just like any person in the community, right? They have value to offer, and they have a message, but they're not always 100% right. And you shouldn't always treat them like, you know, like your favorite child. Sometimes you should treat them like that annoying neighbor you want to sort out. Cool. So last little tale on mindfulness. A guy walks into a bar and there's a chap sat at the bar and a barman behind the bar, and he walks in with his mate, and his mate's an Indonesian. And the guy walks in as a Kiwi. The Kiwi fellow walks in with his Indonesian mate. And then the guy sat at the bar turns around and the barman says to him, are you going to buy these two a drink? And he says, yeah, go on then, why not? And he orders the drink and he turns to the Kiwi and he speaks in Te Reo and he says, I better buy you a drink, mate. Your mate's so ugly. You definitely need a whiskey if you've been hanging around with that all day. And the Kiwi laughs because it's funny. He's having a go at his mate. Banter, love it. And the Indonesian guy smiles and he laughs as well. Why would he laugh at that? Well, because he had no idea what he said. He was speaking a language he doesn't understand. But in that ignorance is a real interesting piece of wisdom. Like, you can be happy no matter what's going on around you. You can choose or absorb the happiness or absorb frustration. You can listen to a message and interpret it any way you like. And ignorance is sometimes a little bit of bliss. But even when you're not in ignorance, you can still take that kind of control over your life. Because it's all about the narrative, right? The Indonesian fella saw his mate laugh. The narrative was, there's a joke been made, and he didn't know what to do, so he joined in, he laughed, right? The reality is he was being insulted. But it's all about that narrative. So when you're in scenarios and you hear the person insulting you, metaphorically speaking, when the messaging from life is there's trouble afoot. Someone's being unkind. Someone's being moody, and it's doing my head in. Someone's expecting too much of me and making demands of me that I can't meet. Things aren't going the way I want them to go. Have a real good think about the truth of it. Is there still more things in your world at that point in time that are worth being happy about or being thankful for than that one thing that's in front of you? There's always stuff that you can find, that you can tap into, that can make you feel a little better or a little renewed. So look for those things and get good at looking for those things, and make that a task for the month as well. When you're doing your meditations, try and take in a thankful, something you're thankful for with you, and put that in your mind as you meditate, and keep growing that list, because all of us have got so much, and there's nothing wrong with wanting a little more. I want to make that really clear. However, if you want more, check in with what you have first, because where you find gratitude, you'll find guidance on what you really want. And then you'll put energy where it belongs and where it's deserved. Cool. Thanks so much for listening today. That's everything on mindfulness we have for you at this point. We hope it was a useful session. And for those of you who've been on the call, we hope that you can perhaps get round to your colleagues and tell them this one's worth a catch up. We'll try and get some timestamps in the text on the website so that you guys can identify the different techniques and just tap in and watch those videos. Obviously, it'd be great if you could take on board as much of the content as possible. But just before we go, we're going to ask Kath to jump in with Bex and just quickly have a chat with Bex about a few things. She's just going to check in with you on your experience so far and get any feedback if possible. And Tanya, if you can put Tanya in with Eva, if that's okay, Eva, just to talk through feedback and to get just to get a solid understanding of where Tanya's at. And if you're willing to give a little verbal testimonial, just something we can write down, that would be great as well from you guys. And again, thanks so much for your attention. Attention is the most powerful currency on the planet, so I do not undervalue it. So thank you so much. Cool.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you next
All right,
month.
thank you. We're just going to send you out into those breakout rooms now.